Succession Corsair is a fairly mobile melee class that can pump out surprising amounts of damage sometimes. Her big value comes from her utility. Any skill that hits the enemy will apply a debuff that prevents them from recovering frontal guard coverage for 5 seconds. Her will skills also offer a huge amount of block break, making this class the bane of vods, Succession Novas, and other classes that rely heavily on frontal guards. She also has a decent vacuum that slows people, and her 100% skill is the best heal in the game. However, due to her slow super armor skill, she's forced to heavily trade her hit points while moving or damaging, and is pretty easy to grab. The class also has very few self heals because they are on super armor skills and they require you to hit the other players, which means when you want to heal up, you end up taking more damage back than you will, limiting how much she can stay on a fight as a frontline class, dying in those skills more often than not. In this guide, I'm gonna detail what skills to take, how to build the class to try and counter their main issues, and what's important to know when first starting out PvP as a sub-Corsair. As for the build, Corsair needs to build tanky stats because of her slow assay skills. She has a 10% evasion buff and a 10% evasion passive, so you want to build evasion as your main stat. Because of the nature of evasion builds, she relies heavily on gear, so it's not a class to be played with low gear score. For the endgame build, you want to run evasion armors, Bandebo, Bandistos, Pentungrid rings, Centaur, Velards, and obviously band weapons. That will give you 3 of 5 AP and a decent amount of tankiness. For large scale, you might want to swap in the Sicil instead of the Debo. If you don't have a Bandebo, you can slot in a Sicil necklace and an AP belt, and you'll be roughly the same tankiness and AP as before. Finally, if you're lower gear score, I recommend running a full DP build. This is very cheap. For artifacts, always run all evasion with untouchable set. As for crystals, if you're on DP build, you want to run evasion like this, otherwise you want to run some damage with Gene histories. So going ahead to the skill build of a Corsair. You want to have every prime skill obviously, and you want to lock 4 skills, 2 of them optionally. So the 2 skills that you want to mandatorily lock are evasion and absolute squall. Evasion roll is more than obvious. Absolute squall will fuck up your pre-buff. When you want to pre-buff with F skill, it gives 20 AP, and you want to have it up all the time. So if you don't lock that skill, what's gonna happen is going to do this, and if you go for the pre-buff now, it's going to do absolute squall instead, which is an unprotected skill. You don't want that. The 2 optional locks, one of them is absolute crashing waves. This just fucks up some combos if you misclick, so there's no point on having it because it does no damage anyway. And the other one that you can lock because you can accidentally miss input and cast it is Flow After the Storm. This here is a KD, so if you want you can just put it there and use it, but as you see it's really slow, so it's not really that good of a KD to use, but if you really think it might be useful, you can just outbar it and lock it. And that way when you cast Storming Surge, if you hold RMB, it won't cast the skill by accident. Now moving on to the revamp skills. The revamp skills are pretty much the same as the Awakening spec. You want to run Rising Whirlpool. This skill gives you a burst of movement, but is unprotected at the end. You don't really want to use this into enemies, but you can use it as a pre-buff and as a way to run away from enemies. So when you're running away, just do this. If you think they can't range CC you, and you should be fine. It's much better than the other skills, so always take this one. As for the second revamp, you want to run Pearl Blast. It's better than the other skill, and it's one of the ways for the Corsair to fish for CCs. It's a range CC, you can cancel it with Skedaddle at the end, but there's always a gap after the essay skill when you throw it, so you can actually get punished, so you need to be careful when to use it as a catch. The last one, you want to take Maraka's Spiral of Dreams, because Maraka's Sea of Dreams has a very long cooldown, costs stamina. Even though it's an iframe, it's not really that good of a skill. This one here, you can spam it, it's good damage and heals you, so it's just a better option. And you can cast it after any will skill like this, so that's the revamp. So it just adds to your DPS and to your healing. So as for add-ons, you want to run Whirling Slash. This is the best pre-buff. You're always casting the skill, so this add-on will always be up. And and you want to have extra damage and accuracy rates. After that, some people put add-ons on the 4-wheel skills. I don't put on Spiral Soak because Spiral Soak is really slow, so I don't really like it. I put defensive buffs on Whale Song because it's a very slow skill but big damage, so it's nice to have the extra DP and evasion there to try and survive. And then the other 2 skills, because they have a very large AoE, I just try and put some debuffs on there because you'll hit a lot of people with them. Finally, for the sword skills, I have 2 slots because I only use 3 will skills, as I said, so I put them on Storming Surge or Wipeout. Another option would be Storming Surge and Wavepout, or Wipeout and Wavepout. Wavepout is a skill that you use on combos, so when you do that you can basically add, for example, an evasion debuff on it, so your combo damage is higher. If you go for Storming Surge or Wipeout, I would recommend having one of them as a DP pre-buff, because Whale Song DP pre-buff won't be up all the time, so I have one on Storming Surge, and on the other one you just put some debuffs or then attack and casting speed, even though this is not super important in my opinion. Moving on to the cancels of the class, you want to know that Skedaddle iframe cancels most shit. So this here, when you press spacebar, that cancels most skills, so just play around with it and understand what skills it cancels. It's pretty much everything besides skills that lock you in place. You can only skedaddle at the end of that Spiral Sword, for example. So it's really about just playing the class and understanding what's cancelable with Skedaddle and what's not. More. You want to know that Captain orders this skill over here. As you see, it's a very long cast time, but you can use it after some skills instantly, so it's really good for combos. So you need to understand, like after Ocean's Pearl, you instant cast it, after this skill, you instant cast it, and after Tide Kiss, which is the flow of Wavepout, you can also instant cast it. So this is good for combos to know. More. You want to understand what will skills can be cancelled and how. So you need to understand, for example, while you do Spiral Soak, you can cancel it to Sistral at any time. So that's pretty good, because that Spiral Soak is a very slow skill. You need to understand that when you cast Whale Song from a static position, it has a very long cast time. So what you want to do is cast it after another whale skill like Sistral or Spiral Soak. So if you use it after Sistral, as you can see, it has a faster cast time. More, you want to know that when you cast the vacuum, you can cancel out of it with Skedaddle here, and then you Skedaddle out, and that's full iframe. It's a very useful tool. And finally, when you cast the vacuum, you can recast it to move the position in iframe, and it's pretty good in case you are inside a lot of people, and just to stall out taking damage, because if you're low on HP, basically. Finally, you want to be careful with Wave Latch. This is our KD RCC here. As you can see, it's 2 hits, and only the first part of the skill has a KD. So what happens is that if you cast it after Whirling Slash, it does a second part only, so you don't get a knockdown on it. You need to play around a bit to understand what skills it gets casted, that has a K, it casts the first part of the skill or not. So you need to play around with it a bit. Usually doing this, cast the KD, just walking up, cast the KD, and after Storming Surge, you can KD, after Wipeout, you can KD, after Wavepout, you can KD, so it's just be careful to not do it after Whirling Slash. So for the movement of the class, you want to know the projected movement. It's pretty simple. You want to do Whirling Slash into Baraka Swing, then Skedaddle, Then you can, for example, go for a Sistro here, it's fully protected. Side, whirling slash, and you just keep going. Then you can do some wipeouts sometimes until your stamina runs out. This is good for while you're fighting, but it's not good while you're trying to catch up with your blob. For that you need to do unprotected movement. So if you're just catching up with your blob on the node war, let's say that you're moving from point A to point B, which is the other side of the arena, you can just hold spacebar, press LMB, hold spacebar, press LMB. This here uses way less stamina, it's unprotected, but it's much faster than just spamming your skills. It's really useful to know. Now, for movement and other things that you need to know is that while you're in wipeout, you can do storming surge mid-air. It's a very useful aerial combo. You can use it to get on top of structures too, so for example like this, and I'm up here, so it's really useful to know. Another way to cast Storming Surge is when you're on high ground, you can press spacebar and then Storming Surge out. This here shouldn't give you like a falling animation, so it's a really good skill to get down on lower ground. So as for combos, Corsair is not really a combo class, but you still want to be able to combo someone if you do catch them. So usually a combo starts with a whirling slash catch and then with a wave powder CC. That will be a stiff into a float, so you still have slot for one more CC there. The best scenario combo where you do react fast enough to the wave pout CC is doing whirling slash, wave pout, ocean swirl, captain orders, wave flash for the KD CC, and then you cast whale song into rebump skill and spiral soak or some other damage. So putting it in action, we do this. And at the end it was a simulacrum for extra damage. That combo should probably kill anyone unless they have really IDR or really high evasion and you don't have the stats for that. So in case you don't react in time to wave pout or ECC with let's say rebump skill from this direction, you won't be able to actually do both parts of the combo, so be it the frontal guard damage rotation or the whale rotation. So when that happens, you want to re-CC with wave lash and then drop one or the other. So for example, let's say I caught someone with this skill, I go in, I re-CC with KD, and then frontal guard rotation, back off with simulacrum. Okay. This works for this, or let's say then that I did this, I backed off, I noticed that I got the KD, so I go in, I re-CC, and then I rotate whales and back off so they don't grab if they're still alive. That's pretty much the only combos that Corsair can do. You can re-CC with overflow after the wave pot re-CC for a float combo, but it doesn't really do as much damage as KDing them, so only if they're running adamantines, and if they do run adamantines, you're gonna do something like this, overflow, and you back off because you don't have time to do anything else. They're already getting up because it's a float, so it's a smaller duration than the KD. For 1v1s on small scale, the thing you need to understand is that Corsair is not very good at this. Any matchup with the grab is against you, including SC blocks. If the opponent doesn't have a grab, you still don't have a very big chance of winning, as classes like Suck DK and Mako can just SC trade you down if they have enough accuracy. So when it comes to the playstyle, you need to understand that first you need to bait out the grab using your iframe. When you know that the enemy doesn't have a grab, you can try and be aggressive in your whale skills and SC trading. You want to fish CCs with whirling slash into wave pout or then a pearl blast rebump skill. If the enemy has a grab down, you can try to assist roll as well. Getting CCs as a Corsair is pretty risky, but it's really the only way you're gonna win in 1v1, so you need to do it. For small scale, the risk of getting grabbed is still there, as there's not many enemies to be afraid of grabbing someone. Getting CCs is still risky, but you should still try to do it. Big difference however now is that sometimes it makes sense to just drop your frontal guard combo to add damage to the enemy. You should be ready to peel to your teammates or use them as mid shields so you can blast with whale skills behind them. Sea Stroll is now a perfect engage tool, as if the enemies don't see you coming, you can get them with their pants down. A fast whale rotation after a Sea Stroll float can pretty much one-shot a ranger or an archer. Your vacuum is a really good tool. It has a good duration, is full iframe, and can slow your enemies, making it really good to peel for teammates. You can use it to split up a group as they are engaging, to waste time and avoid damage, or then to engage yourself. Don't forget to use the flow of the vacuum, or that it can be cancelled with an iframe, as it helps a lot with the survivability. Another tip is to always be on the move and try to never stop. Whenever you need to do a frontal guard skill, try to position yourself in a way that you have your back to a wall so no one can punish you. Corsair has a lot of passive movement and can be slowed, so expect a lot of times to just be ran down or die to range damage. Don't hesitate to turn around and just S-walk for the frontal guard protection if you really need it. For large scale, full DP is recommended, but that's cringe, and a lot of the content is capped, so we're gonna focus on the AP playstyle of Corsair. First, we need to understand a few things. Getting grabbed is much less of a risk when you're on a large scale setting. At the same time, now it's a big risk to cast your frontal guard combo, as it's very slow, since Ocean's Pearl takes way too long to cast. A good Corsair should always be fed rage, as their 100% is the best heal in the game and can turn the fight around if used well. It's important to notice that Sea Stroll, our 100%, is also our main mobility to engage, so when you need to ult, you need to be sure that the ability is not on cooldown. This heavily changes how you will approach the engage. You have 3 options on how to use your ults. The first is reactively, when someone engages your ball. The second is popping it, as a shot caller calls an engage, as a way to heal the Zergers. And the third one is to engage with another mobility, like Mareka Swing wipe out into Stormy Surge, and then utilize the ult mid-fight in the middle of the enemy blob if you need it. Your job as a Corsair is to annoy the shit out of people while you still have the HP to do so. You don't need to die, you can always back off, as the class has very good movement and kiting. When your HP and will cooldowns are back, you can re-engage the fight and try to annoy more people. Be sure to use your vacuum to split apart the raid, or then on the big damage ping that's being given. As I said before, frontal guard damage is very risky, so you should only use it if you're on the outskirts of the fight, or if there's a wall for you to abuse. Just like in small scale, you want to be always on the move. There's no point on stopping as a Corsair, as your abilities don't cost that much stamina and you will make it back using your whale skills. Skills like Skedaddle and the Whirling Slash are to be used on cooldown pretty much. Another thing to keep in mind is to try and keep your pre-buffs up. Whirling Slash pre-buff and the AP buff from the F skill are pretty easy to keep up at all times. I sometimes struggle to remember to keep up my Mareka Swing self-evasion buff, which is very important. You also need to remember that Sea Stroll also has an evasion buff that's stronger than Mareka Swing one, so you need to be sure to reapply your evasion buff as the Sea Stroll one wears off. The 20 DP buff on your Abam skill, however, is a partially unprotected skill, so you need to be careful when you cast it. This also applies to the previous section of 1v1s and small scale. And that's it for the guide. I hope I helped you get the first steps into Corsair PvP, as there's not many resources out there for it. Hopefully the class gets some buffs soon, as it's been really power crapped by the high damage of the game due to her slow animations and lack of self-healing. If you want to watch some Corsair gameplay, I'll leave the link to my Twitch in the description. Thanks for watching, and make everyone wet with Corsair.